The thing about us humans is that we're very relational creatures. We're very interactional. We have relationships with other humans all the time. And some of them are the kind of relationships that are love relationships, where we're life partners. But even outside of that, there's relationships that we have with family members, relationships that we have with friends, relationships that we have with work colleagues or just other people in the world, that we happen upon in the course of our day-to-day. And that's kind of what humans do. We engage in relationships pretty much all the time. And what happens in relationships is that from time to time, things can become a bit wonky, maybe, in the sense that the relationship loses its balance. That somebody will feel hurt by something, or disrespected, or some sort of pain will come up that one or both of us will be feeling in that moment. Or there'll be some sort of ongoing situation where something is happening that really doesn't meet our needs and needs to change. And what will often happen within relationships is that people will engage in a conversation. And in that conversation, they'll try and get their point across. And there's ways of doing that, of course, which are more effective than others. But what I want to focus on in this episode is what happens when you're the listener? What happens when the person comes to you with their pain? And it might even be about something that you've said or done. And the person, or it might be something completely different, of course, but the person is coming to you in order to express their sorrow, their pain, their upset, maybe even their anger about what has happened and to share how they're feeling. Now, when people do that, it can be a challenge, especially if they're talking about the thing that maybe we did to trigger that in them. Because it's very easy for us to go onto the defensive. And then when we go onto the defensive, it just kind of exacerbates the sense that the other person has that we didn't care about them in the first place. And so there's three things that if you're the receiver of this conversation, there's three things that the other person needs from you. Those three things are the reason why they're bringing this very thing to you. Because on some level, they're really hoping that they get this. Whether they're talking about something that you apparently did, or whether it's some other sorrow. What people need when they share their emotional pain with another human being is firstly, to be heard. Secondly, to know that their pain makes sense, that they make sense. And thirdly, to feel that the other person cares about what they're going through. And so in those three steps, to be heard, to make sense, and to have the other person care what you're going through, you actually give that person the empathy and validation that they really need. Now, of course, there's always a tendency to fix things. And fixing things can come down the line, but when somebody comes to you with a pain, that's what they're bringing. And so ideally, if you possibly can, and of course you won't always be able to, it's going to be helpful for you to think of these three things. How do I help this person feel heard? Well, one way that you can help with that is check out with them whether you've understood them right. You can actually echo it. You can say, well, let me just see if I'm hearing you right. I think what you're saying is, and then let them know what it is that you think they're saying. And then that'll give them an opportunity to say, no, it's not quite that, it's this. In which case you can go, okay, so what you're saying is this, until you've actually got it right. And then the person will feel heard. They'll feel as though they've got their point across the net. The second thing they need is to make sense. So at which point you can say, you make sense to me when you say that because ... Now you don't have to agree with them. You might have a completely different belief system to them. But given where they're coming from, we can always validate that a person makes sense. You make sense to me because given the way you think about things, that sounds really important to you. And the third thing is to help the person realize that you care about what they feel. And the easiest way to do that, is simply to guess their emotion. They're probably giving you a lot of clues as to what emotion they're going through at the moment. So you can simply ask. It looks like you're feeling really upset at the moment, am I right? So think about it from your point of view. If you were to take an emotional pain to another person and they took the time to make sure they properly heard you, that they validated you by saying that you make sense to them, that they're having this emotional pain, and thirdly, they even started to check out with you what emotion you were feeling. How would that feel? Because for me, that would feel a lovely experience. And as I say, when we bring an emotional pain, these are the three things that we're really looking for. Not for the problem to be fixed, that's later down the line, but really just to be received. And the best way that we can receive anybody is firstly, to hear them and let them know that they've really been heard. Secondly, to validate them and tell them that they make sense. And thirdly, to pay some attention to the emotion that they're going through. So if you like this episode, feel free to share it. It's often beneficial to anybody in a relationship, really. Often to couples, but not just to couples. So feel free to share it around. If you'd like to work with me, my name is Alun Parry, and I run the Liverpool Psychotherapy practice on Rodney Street in Liverpool. And you can find out all about the practice and me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. So until tomorrow, thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.